So how did you solve this issue of what is Dunzo? Like, how do you define Dunzo?
So, as on today, what the way we define Dunzo is that it's essentially the logistic layer of any city, right? And what that means is that movement of goods from place A to B. It could be for you and I, where we need something from a restaurant or a grocery store to from a friend's place. It could also be businesses that need things to move from the warehouses to the retail outlets, and it could be people being moved from home to office and back home, right? So that's essentially the larger mission of Dunzo, to be the logistics layer of every Indian city.
Do you have an external agency that works with you, or is it all done internally?
It's all done internally.
Oh, wow.
100% of the work is completely internal. So we have an in-house brand team who looks at every single touch point, from the product, the app, the moment you load the app and the animation that you see, till the icons that you see on the product, all the way till even a standee or a leaflet or a flyer that goes out. And of course, everything that goes on digital and social. We are pretty much a digital first brand, which means that we spend all our whatever we spend our money on is all on digital itself, and it's all in performance. So everything that we see on the brand is done internally.
What is that you look for when you're looking to hire people for your creative team?
So I think one big criteria that we have kept, especially given that we are a digital first brand, is that we hire people who know the medium, right? And when I say know the medium, in sense they themselves personally are good at that medium. And what I mean by that is people who have a decent social media following, people who have had their... so when I look at recruiting, I don't look at the resumes, I look at the social media profile. So it's just that I think in this day and age, and given the kind of audience we are talking to, it's very important to get people who intuitively understand specifically channels like Instagram, YouTube, Twitter, TikTok, for example. Yeah, I mean, it's very important to have a point of view, I feel. And I think it's something you had mentioned long ago, that when you interview, you always look for people with a point of view. Whether you agree or not, at least you should have a point of view which is strong.
But do you think increasingly in this new world, it's important for brands to have a strong point of view?
Okay, so I don't know the sort of tonality of your interviews, but if you don't mind me being slightly brutally honest in some of these things, right? I have this theory that, of David and Goliath, right? A lot of rules for Davids are different from what it is for Goliaths. And the way I look at typical FMCG legacy companies are Goliaths, big brands with big marketing brands and big marketing teams, and, a lot of rules and regulations and guidelines. Whereas in today's world, what people are looking for are those Davids who break those rules, right? There was a time when Goliath brands used to look at consumers and look down upon them, Gorakhpur ke consumers, or people in smaller towns are like this, and it's always the English speaking brand manager from an IIM sitting in Bangalore who's passing a judgment on that. And there was a sense that consumers were not as intelligent as a brand manager. Today, I think that is not true. The person making a TikTok channel with 1 million views is smarter than the brand manager who's struggling to get like 1,000 likes on his Instagram post, right? So I think the consumers are a lot more smarter today, and because of that, if you don't have a point of view, they can see through the BS. In fact, there's this very nice thing that Ashish Chopra has written in his book called Fast, Cheap and Viral. He says that consumers today have a very low bullshit radar.
Absolutely.
Like they can smell bullshit from far away, right? If you say women empowerment and don't deliver on it, then they're going to call you out on it. If you say, I stand for Black Lives Matter and don't practice it at home in your country, they're going to call you on it, right? So a lot of it, I think consumers have gotten smarter over the last 5 to 10 years.
Dunzo also seems to have a very interesting persona and a tone of voice, right? That's very relatable and endearing. I just want to understand, how did take us behind the scenes on how did you go around developing something like this? And more importantly, is there a process or a framework that other brands can use in defining their persona and tone of voice?
So to be honest, I think everything in a lot of these startups, most of these kind of frameworks roll down from the leadership, right? And how did they imagine the business to be? And right from the day one, the founders, Kabir, Mukund, everyone else, they've always believed that the business is built on delivery partners, right? They are our face of the brand. They are a walking, talking billboard, and they are the reason why we exist, right? And everything that we came across with building Dunzo as a brand, it's an archetype. So those of you who are familiar with the archetypes or the 12 archetypes, we follow the archetype of an everyman archetype, right? Yeah. Somebody who's relatable, grounded, feels like your, next door neighbor, right? And someone you can relate to. End of the day, while we are serving three people, there's a customers, there are merchants and partners, but the backbone is really from the delivery partners who are going out of the way. I mean, they're taking risks to keep us safe. For example, in the lockdown. Yeah.
What is the science behind consistently creating kind of relatable, meaningful content?
So I think first couple of things I would like to break a couple of myths, right? It might look like an easy job when we are putting it out there, but to be honest, there's a lot of failures as well. And I think the reason I'm saying this is because a lot of people look at Dunzo and they see that, hey, every day we get featured on Social Samosa or Social Media Dissect, but there are also a lot of things that don't work for us. And it's an experimentation. It's an iterative process, right? Because I also feel that social media is constantly evolving. I think consumers and social media are going through cycles. And it's important to keep up with that cycle. And like I remember in March, we were panicking saying, hey, how is social media engagement falling? What do we do? And so on. And that suddenly in April, we saw a lot more engagement. The other thing is that during the lockdown, we've seen this whole trend of empathy being a larger theme that consumers are appreciating, right? So when we started doing social media posts where we congratulated or thanked Zomato, Swiggy, 1mg partners, suddenly consumers reacted very differently from what we expected, right? Versus pushing our own brand out. And that's something that we see across, right? Given the kind of support we are seeing for the people at the front line, the doctors, the delivery partners, the merchants who are staying open for medicines and groceries. So a lot of there's a sense of empathy that's growing very strong. Otherwise, prior to this, it was all about comedy and humor, right? So typically, Guru, that in the mainstream media, there were two large passion points people picked on. One was Bollywood and the other was cricket, right? That's pretty much what defined Indian media for 20, 30 years. Today, it's a lot more of humor and comedy, which is why memes are so popular. But I think in the last 6 months during the pandemic, what has changed is that it's a lot more empathetic. Caring for other people is what people want to hear stories of, like the Baba Ka Dhaba in Delhi, right? It's a story that it's probably the best story that's come out of this lockdown. So I think social media and people are also changing, and just keeping up with that is the challenge for us.
How do you really keep a tab on the pulse of the people? Right? Is there a research that you like, a constant research that you're doing, or is it internal jam sessions? How do you really go about it?
So one, I think almost every one of us on the team is always wired into social media. That's unfortunately one of the things that given any time of the day of the night, we are always on social media. Anything interesting that we see, we share it on a group. These are all small tactical things I'm saying. The other thing that we do is having a cadence. Unfortunately, a lot of these things we ideate once in a while and talk about it, but we don't follow up through. And what we do is have a weekly cadence where we meet, where we discuss just things which are not related to work. Right. For example, last week we had a session on about machine learning and AI. The previous week we had a question on, we had somebody taking a session through an artist from Korea that he likes. So we just keep in touch with content that is not related to our category or not related to our brand, right? And just keep learning, saying this is what is happening in the world. Because I'm also struggling to understand what goes viral, right? It's a question that people have been asking for ages, and it's not a clear answer as we think, right? There are multiple reasons for it. It also, timing makes a big difference. I know that our biggest viral content this year was the one that we did on Friendship Day, where we showed all the different mascots of different brands. And if it had happened on any other day, I don't think it would have had the same impact. I think a lot of this also got to do with the occasion, the timing, and what people are feeling at that time. So we are always trying to understand why did something go viral, so that can we replicate it for ourselves. I think a lot of people have been talking about this. Kunal Shah has been talking about this, Tanmay Bhatt as well. And I think and a lot of startups approach me saying, how do I build my team similar to what Dunzo is? And one recommendation that I give is try and find content creators. Try and find people who have another job as well, right? And everybody in my team has another profile or something else, some other gig, right? So my chief designer is the vocalist of one of India's most popular metal bands, right? Our copywriter is a singer, right? Another copywriter is very famous on Twitter for her puns and wordplay and poems, right? The designers are famous illustrators who do other freelance projects as well. I have a quiz gig on the side as well. So a lot of people, it's important to have people who have another life as well, right? Because then they'll learning from the other life as well. This is something we realized early on, that each platform is working differently, right? You can't have the same content that would work the same. And we have an analysis. So like I said, cadences, right? One cadence that we have is we look at other work of other content creators. Another cadence that we do is look at our own internal work from a metric point of view, right? Which is a very interesting thing, was creative people aren't, like, you intuitively think that creative people aren't number driven, but it actually opens up your eyes, right? Because a lot of times we like the content we like, right? And we think that is what is working. But when you look at the numbers, you realize that, hey, this kind of content works well on Instagram and this kind of content works well on Twitter, because Twitter's the shelf life is low. The audiences are very different. They're looking for wordplay, they're looking for humor. Instagram is a lot more visual heavy. Like people love to see rich images of food, about videos of delivery partners. Instagram is clearly becoming the new YouTube, right? Where most of the video content you consume is on Instagram. So a lot more video content, visual heavy content, a lot more moment marketing works on Twitter, right? Things that are immediately trending, immediate events. So, and turnaround for a lot of the moment marketing, honestly, is within 60 minutes to 120 minutes. I remember when IPL and Game of Thrones was happening, we used to wake up every morning on Game of Thrones, watch the episode from 6:30 to 7:30. 7:30 to 8:30, we're jamming on different ideas. And by 9, the designers put out the post and we have released it. Most startups, when they start off, right, we create products for ourselves or people like us, right? With all due respect, most of us know the kind of typical Bangalore individual, right? Watches Netflix, doesn't know Aaj Tak, is on Twitter and in shorts, but doesn't know the real India and so on to speak. And one of the fears that we had was we were missing out on the newer audiences, right? As Dunzo scales up, we need to acquire people who are not like us. People who are traditional in mindset, people whose passion points are not Netflix and Sacred Games and Spotify, but more on, Savan, watching
Big
TV
Boss,
shows on
reality.
TV. Exactly. Big Boss. Big Boss is roadies, for example, right? So we realized that, hey, we have to have a balance. And one of the things that we realized is that Bollywood humor, puns on, just taking the same tonality of puns, wordplay, being cute and clever, to Bollywood was another thing, and that really worked wonders for, because for the first time in history I've seen people saying that, hey, I love push notifications. Push notifications, if you know, is something that people hate the most. Absolutely. Right? They turn it off. It's one of the things that we see only in India, not in other countries, where brands use push notifications to push out marketing messaging. But we've finally figured out a hack where people turn it on just to see that. Right? It brings a smile to your face. It's something contextual. Even on Valentine's Day, I remember that we sent out a message saying it's perfectly fine if you don't have a date tonight, right? And people loved that kind of messaging because it's certainly unexpected. So it was genuinely from the business point of view saying, how do we target? So we define our user audience as existing users and new users. And new users is a challenge because those are the people who are not like us, right? And that's the reason why we create content that is WhatsApp share worthy. My biggest brief to my team is always like, each piece of content should be shareable on WhatsApp family groups, right? And that's where it came from. But I think for the longest time, the people who created the content or people who signed off on the content, right, were very different from the people they were speaking to. I think that is rapidly going to change from both sides. The people who are receiving the content are going to be much more smarter, much more aware of things. Like they will tell you about Elon Musk's latest video, right? Somebody sitting in Nagpur versus like we may not have seen it, right? And also I think the people that are going to be in the decision-making table are going to be evolving. They're not going to be typical MBAs or mass comm graduates. They're going to be from the content world, from the BuzzFeeds joining in and so on.
Do you do influencer marketing or do you work with celebrities here and there?
No. So 2-3 reasons for this. We are very conscious about being a profitable business. So we don't invest monies on brand building activities. We largely look at organic and hacking the system. Influencer marketing, we do it at a very minimal level where we look at credibility as the biggest criteria, not reach. right? So if I pay an ex-cricketer X amount of lakhs and say that do a post for us, I'm sure it'll get us reach, but the credibility is very, very low versus going to, let's say you take niche cohorts, for example. If you go to home bakers, right, or single parents, right, senior citizens. So those are cohorts that we are always targeting. We're targeting freelancers, we're targeting senior citizens, because they all have unique use cases. And in that, we look for people who have high credibility, people who are really taken seriously for having a better experience. The other thing we also do is we always keep an eye out for there's always an opportunity, right? There's always an opportunity that one day you'll have a celebrity who will accidentally post about your brand, and what is the best you can make out of it. And we have done this multiple times with Nikhil Chanappa conversations, where he puts out tweets saying, I'm looking for something, Anjo, and we have a conversation that goes on. But yeah, that's an interesting thing altogether.
And what's your take, Sai, generally on the whole hype around influencer marketing?
Again, I don't know what the tonality of your show, because I end up being a little
tonality
honest.
Is absolutely honest. Yeah.
See, I think I always joke about this. There are more influencer marketing agencies than there are influencers, right? I think we are still in the early stages of what it could become. Okay. I honestly feel it works for certain categories like lifestyle, cosmetics, food and beverages, for example, is a category it benefits from. But I think there's also a sort of a black hole there where a lot of money gets wasted in influencer marketing. I have spent truckloads of money on very big celebrities, and I've seen that it feels good. It's like a billboard outside your house, right? Absolutely. It feels very good, but you don't know what the return on that is. So I think influencer marketing is like the ATL of digital, is what I always say.
Absolutely. And this interesting thing about credibility that you talked about, right? Are there any measures to figure out someone's say that this guy is credible, not credible? Because definitely going the numbers route and how many number of followers and all doesn't make sense. But credibility is a very interesting metric. But is there a way to quantify it, make sense of it?
Honestly, no. I have not been able to find a way. It's largely qualitative. But I just look at things which other people are talking about it, right? So what I mean by that is I look at replies to people's posts. I look at people who are quote tweeting that post. I look at people sharing that and see what are people saying from it, because that makes a big difference. What other people are saying about you makes a bigger difference than what you have been saying and how much you've been reached, because all of that can be gamed, right? We have reached a stage where you can buy as many clicks and it's all over the news anyway. So I feel that what other people have said about you makes a bigger difference. We believe that it's our role to fill the internet with better content. Right? It's a slightly philosophical thing that it's very easy for us to take a stock image and put a copy and put it out there, but we don't do that, right? We like my team very strongly believes that we should create good content, and it's a Neil Gaiman philosophy where he says that make good art. Whether you're feeling depressed, whether you're feeling angry, make good art. And we believe that a lot of internet is garbage. Unfortunately, right? A lot of social media is, and it's responsibility of brands like us, content creators like BuzzFeed, or even a TikTok star, right? It's our responsibility to clean up the end. So that is one thing that we keep, and we don't do things around titillating things, right? We don't do jokes around sex and those kind of things that get it's easy to create content that gets shared on WhatsApp. So we have a philosophy that we will not do certain things. Where the real challenge comes is that having a stance on something, right? Especially given how polarized India is today, we took a call not to. So I think a lot of this is, there is no rule book. As long as you know who you want to be, and we are clear as to who we want to be, right? We want to be a brand that is relatable and is for everyone, at the same time making content that is not provoking anyone. One thing that comes across is that the freedom to work, right? It's important that to highlight the fact that we are not micromanaged as a brand team, right? Kabir and the founding team, in the first 6 months, we just tried to get on the same pace, saying this is the tonality, this is what we like to do, and this is our eventual aim. But there's also freedom to do things that would work. Unfortunately, and you've been there, Guru, that a lot of good marketing gets killed because of micromanagement, right? With respect to overthinking about what the consumers would do, etc. And we get that freedom to do that. You and I, like I said, we come from legacy companies, FMCG background, where consistency is the biggest thing, right? And when I came here, and there was a lot of unlearning that I had to do, right? And when I looked at a lot of my designers are very clued in with what's happening in the world, and what they looked at was this idea of versatility, right? That brands have to be versatile. It doesn't have to be the same logos, placement, messaging. Like a lot of FMCG brand, you'll see the same messaging coming across in every creative, right? And what we realize is that consumers are much smarter than that. When they're looking at a social media feed, it's like, so they're looking at the same brand but with different parts of their personality. Like you and I, for example, we may be wearing certain kind of clothes during the work hours, but when you're on evenings, we're slightly different personalities. When you're on the weekends, we're completely different personalities. When you go on a vacation, you're so on and so forth, right? And your social media feed also represents that. They expect brands to be the same way. As long as you are recognizable as, hey, I can see that this is Dunzo. Because the reason I'm saying all of this is, I know a lot of typical advertising agency folks come back and tell me that, hey, when I look at your Instagram feed, it looks like your brand is inconsistent, because we have different illustration styles, right? There is one style for what we call as Danya Ki Dunya, which is a comic strip series inspired by R.K. Lakshman's Common Man, which is a different style. Then we have other posts which are only copy with bright green background and black text, and then we have other texts which are photograph and video led, a lot more on everyday superheroes. The point I'm trying to make is that consistency is a Goliath advantage. If you're a big brand like HUL brands and Lifebuoys of the world, it makes sense because your penetration is high, your audience is large, all that. But on digital, I don't believe that consistency is that important. It's important to be versatile and important to be different. It's one of the things I have unlearned and learned over the last few years. So as long as few things are consistent, right? The brand name, the colors, like for you to identify saying that without looking at the logo, can I know that this is a Dunzo or a Zomato or a Swiggy? Yes, as long as that is there, then consistency doesn't matter. Your messaging could be different. It could be on a Hera Fairy meme today. It could be on a very cute Stranger Things thing tomorrow, or it could be about Atmanirbhar. It could be different things for different days.
So what are some of the Indian brands that are really getting this kind of the social media marketing right?
To be honest, I think there are brands in my own category, in our own category, who are definitely benchmarks. I think it goes without saying, and it's a name that everybody is familiar with, which is Zomato. I think Zomato built that new green field for brands to follow many years ago. And I think a lot of brands are doing a great job even now on similar lines, right? So Netflix India, I think, does an excellent job. It also comes with advantage. Because brands like Durex and Netflix are sitting on that strong passion point of pop culture and sex, right? And from there it's easier to create. But I think one of the brands that has really impressed me, and this is not to provoke anyone, but I think the brand that has been doing the best work on digital is really BJP. And the entire brand around Modi. While we might have a different opinions on political opinions, but I think they've understood who their user is, right? They've understood what are the channels that their users are on. Their users are primarily on WhatsApp, Twitter, Facebook, right? And they've created content for it. So I think BJP is an incredible job at marketing themselves during the elections, even outside of the elections. The content that's been put out there, right? There is an audience for it. We may or may not agree with the politics of it, but I think the marketing side of it of BJP is great.
There's some content creators, who are listening to you today. So what is that mantra that you give them to, to be able to build that inspiration and discipline to, consistently churn out good content? So what do they need to do to build that discipline and inspiration?
See, I think one thing to keep in mind, because I have done this multiple times, right, where I made the mistake where I would have an idea and I would jump into it and then realize that the enthusiasm with which I started it is not the same at which I continue it later on, right? So I'll give you an example. I had started a podcast around 4 years ago, and the first 2 episodes were great, right? And the third episode took another month. The fourth episode took 2 months, right? So one of the things with content creation, which doesn't get highlighted, is planning. I know planning sounds like a very management word, but planning is very, very critical to content. And if you speak to anybody who's putting out a YouTube series, a podcast series, meme content, right? They're planning well in advance. They're creating content a bank of content that's available there to release. So that's one. I think the second is that just prioritize frequency over anything else. We are living in a very weird world where it's not just about great quality content. I'll give you a simple example from YouTube, right? Ideally, in the old world, you should make a great film with a great script, shot very well. That's the best way to make a video. Today, unfortunately, it's come down to the title of the video and the thumbnail of the video, right? So it's unfortunately that. So knowing how to hack the system is very, very important.
Thank you so much, Sai, for your time. I thoroughly enjoyed it.
Thanks,
in fact,
Guru.
It has been a learning experience for me. It has been like a masterclass for me. I hope everybody here enjoyed it as much as I did and took away some key learnings.